The music was loud, the lights were blinding, and I was completely out of place. Standing backstage at one of the biggest fashion shows in the city, I felt like a misplaced puzzle piece. I wasn't a model, a designer, or even a guest. I was just there helping my friend carry some last-minute supplies. Honestly, I didn't even plan to stay, but something about the energy in the air pulled me in. Everyone around me looked like they belonged. Tall, confident, dressed in clothes I couldn't even pronounce the names of. Meanwhile, I stood there in jeans and a hoodie, holding a box of hairpins and trying not to bump into anyone important. That's when it happened. As I turned to leave, someone called out, "Hey, you!" At first, I thought they were talking to someone else. But then I looked up and saw her. A sharp, well-dressed woman with a clipboard in one hand and a Bluetooth headset in the other. She looked like someone who ran the show, or maybe even ran several. "Are you with the styling team?" she asked. Before I could even say no, she waved me over and said, "We're short-staffed. I need help with a last-minute change. Come on." I didn't have time to argue. The next thing I knew, I was following her through a maze of curtains and garment racks, getting quick instructions I barely understood. I held dresses, fixed shoes, and even helped a panicking model find her earring 5 minutes before her runway walk. I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow I managed to keep up. After the final walk, just when I thought I could quietly slip out and go back to my normal life, that same woman stopped me again. She looked at me closely, almost like she was trying to figure me out. Then she smiled and said, "You kept calm under pressure." Not many can. Ever thought about working in fashion? I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't smiling out of politeness. She was serious. "I have a job opening," she added. "Something that starts right away. I think you might be exactly who we're looking for." I froze. Was this real? Me? The person who tripped over a garment bag 10 minutes ago? I didn't even know what kind of job she meant. But part of me was already curious. And just like that, my ordinary night turned into something I never saw coming. But what exactly was the offer, and why me, of all people? That's when things started to get even stranger. I wanted to ask her what kind of job she was talking about, but my mouth went dry. My brain was still trying to catch up with everything that had just happened. The show had ended, people were celebrating, models were hugging, music still played low in the background, and here I was, standing frozen with this unexpected offer hanging in the air. I glanced around, half expecting someone to pop out with a camera and say this was some kind of prank. But nothing happened. Just her, waiting for my answer. I don't have experience," I finally said, trying to be honest. She smiled. Again, this time in a way that felt more knowing than friendly. "Sometimes experience gets in the way. I'm looking for someone with instinct. Quick thinking. You've already passed the first test tonight, whether you meant to or not." Before I could say anything else, she handed me a sleek black card. No name, no company logo, just a phone number and a time. "Come by tomorrow, 10 a.m. Don't be late," she said. Then she turned and disappeared into the crowd, just like that night, I barely slept. My head spun with questions. Who was she? What kind of job was she offering? And why had she chosen me, a random outsider who was never supposed to be part of any of this? I searched online for the event, trying to match her face with anyone on the team. Nothing. It was like she didn't exist. But something told me this wasn't a scam or some weird joke. It felt intentional. Like she had seen something in me I didn't even see in myself. The next morning, I stood outside a tall building in a part of the city I never go to. Glass walls, shiny signs, and people who looked like they had fashion running through their veins. I clutched the black card like it was a key to another world. Maybe it was. I kept thinking I should turn around and forget about all of this. Go back to my regular life, my part-time job, my comfort zone. but I didn't. I walked in. The receptionist seemed to be expecting me. She gave a small nod and told me to wait. I sat in the lobby, staring at the polished floors and giant magazine covers on the walls. Some of them I'd seen before at grocery stores or online. Big fashion names, big faces. And now, somehow, I was here. What happened next made me question everything I thought I knew about my future, and why I might have been chosen for something far more complicated than just a job. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Every second ticked by like it was stretching time on purpose. When the doors finally opened, I stepped into a space that looked nothing like a regular office. It was more like a creative lab. Mood boards pinned to the walls, fabric swatches hanging in rows, mannequins half-dressed in experimental outfits. People moved quickly, speaking in low tones, focused but intense. And in the middle of it all, there she was again. The same woman from the fashion show. She greeted me with a nod, like she already expected me to follow through. "I'm glad. You showed up," she said. "You're going to shadow someone today. If you can keep up, maybe we'll talk more." That someone turned out to be a guy named Luca. He was a lead stylist, sharp-tongued, constantly multitasking, and clearly not thrilled to have me tagging along. He didn't hide it either. "So you're the instinct hire, huh?" he muttered as we walked through racks of clothes. "This place eats up people like you?" I wasn't sure what that meant, but I stayed quiet and watched closely. Throughout the day, I learned more than I thought I would. About fashion, sure, but also about pressure, egos, deadlines, and politics. Turns out, behind all the glamour of runway shows and glossy magazine spreads, there was a whole world of stress, strategy, and silent wars. Designers clashed with stylists, models complained about last-minute changes, and everyone seemed to be fighting to stay relevant in an industry that moved at lightning speed. Somewhere in the chaos, I started to notice things that didn't add up. Conversations that stopped when I walked by. A model crying in the hallway. A missing designer that no one wanted to talk about. It felt like something was going on beneath the surface, something they weren't telling me. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it or if I was getting too close to something I wasn't supposed to see. By the end of the day, I wasn't just questioning the job. I was starting to wonder what I'd really stepped into. And more importantly, why had they picked me? By the third day, I was no longer just a shadow. They started trusting me with small tasks, arranging looks, coordinating fittings, handling last-minute deliveries. The pace was brutal, the hours longer than I ever expected. But something in me didn't want to quit. Not yet. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking through a maze without knowing where it led. Everyone smiled on the surface, but there was something about their eyes, guarded, calculating. Fashion may have looked effortless on the outside, but behind the scenes, it was cutthroat. That afternoon, things took a strange turn. Luca handed me a sealed folder and told me to drop it off with the creative director. "Do not open it," he added sharply. "Just hand it off and walk away." I nodded, but as I made my way through the quiet hallway, something felt off. The folder was heavier than it should have been. Out of pure instinct, maybe even fear, I paused near a corner where no one could see me. I didn't open it all the way, just enough to see a glimpse of what was inside. It wasn't style boards or fabric orders. It was a series of printed emails, design sketches, and a photo, one that made my stomach twist. The missing designer, the one no one talked about. She was standing with someone from the current team. They looked tense, mid-argument, and the timestamp was just 2 weeks ago. So why was everyone acting like she had vanished months ago? I quickly closed the folder, my heart racing. I delivered it like I was supposed to, but something had definitely shifted. I wasn't just part of a fashion team anymore. I was tangled in something else, a story no one wanted told, a secret buried under layers of fabric and flashbulbs. That evening, I overheard a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. Two people from the team whispering near the fire exit. One of them mentioned the designer's name, followed by, "We have to keep it quiet. She knew too much." I backed away before they saw me, every hair on my body standing straight. I didn't know what she knew, but now I was sure they didn't want anyone digging deeper, and I'd already seen too much. When I left the building, the streets felt darker, like the city itself was keeping secrets. I didn't know who to trust. All I knew was this: I wasn't hired by accident. And whatever this job really was, it was only just beginning. The next morning, I walked into the studio with a tight chest and 1,000 thoughts swirling in my head. I kept replaying the words I'd overheard. She knew too much. What did she know? And why was it dangerous? Enough to make her disappear? I wasn't even sure if she'd left by choice anymore. Everyone acted like she was irrelevant, like she never existed. But her face in that photo said otherwise. Fear, urgency, like she had been trying to warn someone. I tried to blend in and keep my head down, but that got harder when the woman who originally recruited me called me into her office. Her tone was different this time, more serious, less impressed. She shut the door behind me and stared for a moment, like she was trying to read my thoughts. "You've been asking questions," she said flatly. I froze. I hadn't told anyone what I saw, not even Luca. I thought I was being careful. "People talk," she continued. "This is a fast-paced environment. There's no room for distractions. I brought you in because you had potential, not to play detective." I swallowed hard, trying to stay calm. I wasn't trying to cause trouble. I just noticed some things that didn't make sense. She studied me for a few more seconds, then her voice softened, but it didn't feel comforting. It felt controlled. "There are reasons we don't talk about certain things. Trust is earned in this industry. If you want to stay, you'll need to focus on your work. That's the only way forward." I nodded slowly, pretending to agree. But inside, everything was spinning. Why try so hard to shut me down if there was nothing to hide? Just when I thought things couldn't get more intense, the second twist hit. Later that afternoon, Luca pulled me aside, looking unusually tense. He handed me a flash. Drive without saying much, just whispered, "Don't plug this in here. Take it home. You deserve to know the truth." Then he walked away like nothing had happened. Now I was holding something physical, something someone had risked giving me. I had no idea what was on it, but from the way Luca looked, I knew it was big. Maybe even dangerous. Back at home, I stared at the drive for a long time before plugging it in. Files began to load, video clips, messages, voice memos. The first clip started to play, showing the missing designer sitting in what looked like that same office I'd just left hours ago. Her voice was low but clear. "If you're seeing this, then something went wrong." My heart nearly stopped. The video played in shaky resolution, but her expression was clear. Scared, exhausted, but determined. The missing designer, whose name I now knew was Elise, sat in a dimly lit room. "If you're seeing this," she repeated, "it means I didn't make it out the way I planned." She went on to describe a dark side of the fashion world I hadn't even imagined. Elise had uncovered that several top-level executives at the fashion house were involved in stealing designs from lesser-known creators, young, struggling designers who had no voice or platform to fight back. Their work was being copied, slightly altered, then passed off as original collections under major brand names. It was a creative theft ring, hidden behind glamour and brand deals. She had tried to speak up, to expose the truth, but every time she got close, something stopped her. Files were wiped, emails disappeared, and eventually, she was warned. Disappear quietly, or be made to. She chose to run, but left the recordings behind, hoping someone would find them and finish what she'd started. I sat frozen, the truth sinking in. It wasn't just about one designer going missing. It was about an entire system built on exploitation, and I had been pulled into it by accident. Or maybe not. Maybe I was meant to find this. I backed up the files and took them to Luca the next morning. When I showed him what was on the drive, his face drained of color. "She trusted me," he said quietly. "I should have helped her before it got this far." Together we took the footage to someone outside the company, a journalist Luca knew who had been trying to break into the inner circle for years. With the evidence Elise recorded, there was finally enough to launch an investigation. The story went public within days. There were firings, lawsuits, public statements, even a full-scale investigation into multiple fashion houses. Elise's name was everywhere now, not just as a missing designer, but as the one who exposed the truth. Just when I thought it was over, a final email arrived in my inbox. No subject line, no sender name, just one sentence. "You were never just an assistant. We chose you because someone had to finish what Elise started." Attached was a new folder. Inside, confidential sketches, designs no one had seen before, and, at the bottom, a signed offer, creative director in training. The job offer wasn't the beginning of the story. It was the reward for surviving it. I sat in silence for a long time, staring at that digital offer. Creative director in training. It felt surreal. Too big. Too fast. Just days ago, I was backstage by accident, holding a box of hairpins. Now, I was holding the key to a career I never planned for. But maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe Elise had chosen someone outside the system, someone who wasn't already caught up in its politics and power games. Maybe I was the one because I still believed in what fashion could be before it got twisted. I didn't accept the offer right away. I needed time to think, to breathe. I kept wondering if this job would pull me into the same shadows Elise had, tried so hard to escape. But the truth is, change doesn't happen from the outside. Someone has to be inside the room, making different choices. And I realized I wanted to be that someone. Luca and I stayed in touch. He ended up stepping away from the industry for a while, taking time to reconnect with why he started in fashion in the first place. He said the whole experience had shaken him, but he was proud we finished what Elise couldn't. The company itself went through a massive transformation. New leadership, a complete rebrand. They even created a mentorship program for independent designers, giving real credit and pay to up-and-coming talent. Elise's designs were released posthumously, credited properly, and a scholarship fund was named in her honor. Her voice wasn't silenced after all. It just needed a little help being heard. As for me, I stepped into the role slowly. I learned, I listened, and most of all, I remembered. Every meeting, every design review, every show, I carried the weight of how I got there. It kept me grounded. It reminded me that fashion isn't just about trends or glamour. It's about people, stories, voices that deserve to be seen and heard. Looking back now, I realize that strange night at the fashion show wasn't random. It was the first step on a path I never would have chosen, but one I was meant to take. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Sometimes, the most unexpected job offers aren't just about work, they're about purpose. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the fashion, it was about the truth.